Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Heritage. Today we are going to France. Specifically, we are looking at the Palace and Park of Versailles, which is one of the oldest UNESCO World Heritage Sites, or at least one that's been on the list a longer time. Maybe not the oldest historically, but it fits in with our upcoming podcast episode talking about the French Revolution. What happens when gaudy, excessive spending, glam, glory, all coalesce in a nation that is starving.
Yeah, this is French excess at its finest. The Palace and Park of Versailles were originally put under construction in 1624 by King Louis the 13th. But it was his son Louis the 14th that turned it into the massive palace that it is today, the full chateau that it is. It is iconic. It was the seat of governance for the French kings up until Louis the 16th, with the end of that main Bourbon line.
It just was truly a sign of excess wealth, excess value, opulence, luxury. The palace is one of the most ornate things ever built up until this time. And that, I think, is truly saying something, being some 200 odd years outside of the Renaissance.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is it. It is very impressive. It took 50 years to build. It was um, it began construction in 1624, um, and they kept redoing it. Um, they made they redesigned the thing in 1661 and then again in 1678 because the kings kept deciding it wasn't big enough. And so it was just under continuous construction and expansion, just growing.
I mean, if that's not one of the core tenets of human nature, we just like bigger and better. Everything we want to be larger. Our houses, our castles, our palaces, our coffers. I mean, it's such a
Yep.
relatable thing, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. And this is this need to make a statement and have an impact. Um, it is considered the masterpiece of what is French neoclassical. It's an entire art and architectural style that it's the base, it's the touchstone for. This was the touchstone for royal palaces. This is the symbol of absolute kingly authority in Europe, is this palace.
This also comes in a time in French history where the castle was being built at a pretty prosperous, or the palace, I should say, it's not a castle. The
You
palace
know,
was built upon a really successful, prominent point in French history. Their colonies were producing, they were at one of their single largest territorial extents at this point, having
yeah,
colonies in pretty much every geographic region.
yeah.
They were,
Louis the Fourth, yeah, Louis the 14th, who does a lot of the work on this, he gets nicknamed the Sun King because his entire everything he touches is golden. He's basically French Midas. Only he receives no comeuppance for anything. It's just, he kept rebuilding it because he kept needing something to express the new heights of grandeur that the French Empire had reached.
and every time it reached a new point, he'd have to expand.
Yeah.
And at least he didn't screw it up as bad as his grandson.
Yeah. But like you see a similar pattern here with like pyramids. The first pyramid kept getting bigger and taller because the king kept on living and kept on doing more things that warranted a more accomplished monument.
Not to mention, you said 50 years. That's a long time. And that really is like a statement heritage piece. You build
Yeah.
a palace that is good enough for your ancestors to live
Yeah. Well, your descendants. This isn't
in.
the
Or,
tomb.
yeah,
You need to
sorry,
keep in your
descendants, not as
ancestors.
us. When you're a time
Be
trap,
gone, grandfather. Back into the void with thee.
when you're a time traveler such as myself, you tend to get that stuff. It's all timey wimey. Yeah. faux pas on my part, but yes, his descendants would live in the castle and really get to enjoy it. And it is one of the most celebrated imperial castles that were built in terms of size, grandeur, the gilding on it. And the UNESCO World Heritage Site doesn't just include the palace, but it also includes the park that is associated with it, because the grounds were just as important as the palace itself. You know, you need
Yeah,
to have a grand palace, but you need a grounds that were magnificent in their own right. Exotic plants, beautiful gardens, beautiful
yeah,
ponds.
yeah. More time would historically be spent on the grounds than inside the palace. The palace is meant to make a statement, hold meetings, and be the place where the important people sleep. The grounds are where you spent most of your day, out and about in the fresh air, doing whatever it is you were going to do that day, whether it was business or pleasure.
And this was also during a point in which the French monarch held absolute power. It wasn't a constitutional monarchy, so this really was the best way to show that power. It was an homage, like, look at how mighty and great our king is, who can afford such luxuries. If you were even the luckiest peasant to get to walk up to the grounds or to help build it, most others would just hear about it.
Yeah. Oh, it is yeah, it is massive. It is the touchstone. It draws on art and architecture from across Europe to create something that is universally imposing, regardless of what culture a dignitary came from. They could look at this and see some semblance of what was coded in their society for authority, so that you understood walking through the gates. This is the palace of arguably the most prosperous man on earth at this time. And it's actually been pretty well preserved, all things considered.
Yeah.
It's got great deal of integrity. It is currently serving as a sort of guided tour museum, and because of that, there's been a lot of painstaking research into interior design and recreating a lot of the original layouts that would have been suitable for the various rooms of that period.
It did face a little bit of destruction during the revolution, which unfortunately does happen. However, in the 19th century, they began redecorating and building out some new spaces within the museum. So they have reconstructed the aspects that they could, but they have transformed it into a living thing. And the palace and its property are now state owned and are a part of a protection under the historic monuments, and they get a great deal of conservation and restoration efforts, especially because of its importance as a historical point and as, quite frankly, a tourist site.
Yeah, and with that, one like the primary concern of this site is a concern we're always happy to see, because it's so much better than all the other worries you might have, and that is, how do we incorporate modern safety elements into this building without compromising it? Because being a tourist attraction in a museum, it needs things like fire suppression, or disability access, which the fire alarm did not exist in the 1600s. That just wasn't a thing. It was screaming. That was your fire alarm. So trying to figure out how to incorporate basic health and safety is that's a very nice concern to have, as opposed to deterioration or neglect or overuse.
And one of my favorite things is they have a management plan in place, a master plan, so to speak, that concerns all the restoration of the buildings and plans of the original sites. It also works on updating some of the installations and, like you mentioned, the fire suppression and safety regulations. And even better is, in the case of Versailles, they actually expanded the buffer zone around the property to include the entire World Heritage Site. So they really are trying to conserve and preserve it. And it truly is a testament both to the possibilities of historic preservation, but one of the key proponents as to why we should do it and ways that we could be successful with it. But I actually think that's probably a great point for us to wrap up today's episode. Let us know what your thoughts on Versailles are down below, and we'll see you in the next one.